Hey friends, welcome to the Tech Unlock podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This show aims to demystify tech careers and diversify the tech industry by giving you the keys to unlock your successful tech careers. I'm your host, Grace McJones. Let's jump right in. Today, I am so excited to have Mary Nguyen on my podcast. She's a tech blogger. She's a entrepreneur. She has her own shop, and she's an ex-NASA engineer. Just an all-around incredible person, and I can't wait for us to jump into today's discussion and conversation. So welcome to the show, Mary. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing so great. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I discovered Mary through actually a post that I think a mutual friend, Sage, had posted about in her story. I was like, dang, this girl's an engineer, like in NASA. Like, let me find out, I'm always on the lookout to just see like more women of color in tech and just get to know them. And so it's been interesting just seeing you and the amazing things that you've been up to. So for those who don't really know you, kind of give a quick, introduction about what you do. Like you were going to explain it to like a 5-year-old, because what you do is like incredible, and I like want to learn from this conversation.
Thank you so much. So I feel like I've dabbled in a lot of things in my early career. So I was a NASA engineer. I was a structural analysis engineer at NASA, and then made a kind of like a huge career jump into missile defense, which is where I am now. So I'm pretty much a missile defense engineer. That's like the best way I can put it, but my specific job title is a test requirements lead. So in the simplest term possible, basically I just help make sure that our missiles are capable of destroying other countries' missiles in any scenarios where we're threatened. But working in test requirements, I'm kind of more under like the systems engineering branch. So I do a lot more oversight and coordinating with people and just making sure that everyone's on the same board and making sure that all of our objectives and test requirements get met.
Wow, I'm still trying to like keep up. I love how you say it's simply put. I'm like, that doesn't sound simple at all. And for those like listening, I'm sure they're like, okay, how do you even become a missile? What you just said, I'm just like still trying to wrap my head around it. Yeah. How do you, um kind of figure out, like, I'm guessing like this is not something you saw yourself wanting to do when you're a little kid. So kind of walk us through how you landed this type of career that you're in right now.
Yeah, so I actually graduated with a mechanical engineering degree.
Okay.
Um, and I think just living where I am and being where I am right now, which is Huntsville, Alabama, we have a huge missile defense sector here. And it's because we have a military base. And then we also have NASA. So those are two of like the really biggest jobs here. So it's either aerospace or military and defense. So for me, it was a little bit easier to get into the defense side. Um, and really, it was just because like when I wanted to leave NASA, I kind of wanted to go somewhere that I could see myself growing and expanding even more. So I was just applying to a lot of the jobs and exploring my options here, even though defense is so different from aerospace. But that's why I love engineering, because our skills are really, applicable to a wide variety of things.
Yeah.
And so I was interviewing a lot, and you'll really notice that if you're familiar with the area, that a lot of the jobs here, you're either doing work for defense or you're a contractor for defense. So that's really how I got in. It's just a really big thing here.
Gotcha. And you graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. How was that process like in school, studying something where you probably didn't see a lot of people who looked like you in that area? And how are you able to um kind of figure out like, okay, this is something I want to do, and what are some things that you had to overcome just like as a student, as a first gen student? Like, how was that process like for you?
I think my biggest struggle was that I truly joined engineering as like a blank canvas, like I didn't have parents in
Interesting.
engineering.
Yeah.
I didn't have friends in engineering. I did not know anyone in engineering. And I actually dabbled with like a few different fields before I joined engineering.
Okay.
I did health science in high school, and then I graduated with a 2-year business degree. And then I kind of just opened my options to basically all career fields after that because I wanted something more of a challenge. I knew that I was a good problem solver and I love thinking out of the box, and being creative. So I was like, what field can I get into that will allow me to do that? And so when I was considering engineering, I was actually considering like all of like the engineering disciplines. I was considering computer science, software, electrical, aerospace, all of that. But growing up, I've always been like a visual learner and
Mm.
a doer, and I learn best when things are more concrete. So I just thought mechanical was the best. I was like, if I can take a concept or an idea and then bring it to life, I felt like that was the most exciting aspect of engineering to me. So I kind of just dove into it, honestly, not really knowing what all it entails. Not really having a mentor or a clear vision or path of where it was going to take me, or if I'll even succeed. But I was excited and passionate enough about the idea that I just got into it, and then I just kept going. And yeah, being a minority, being one of the very few women in my classes was intimidating, but it was also kind of like really cool to think about. I was like, I'm sitting here with like 0 to like minimum experience in engineering, but I'm still doing the same thing as
Yeah.
everyone else. I'm still taking the same tests. I'm still passing the classes, So it was always empowering for me. I was like looking to myself as like my own inspiration and my own role model.
That is so powerful. I love that perspective of, you looking to yourself because at that point there wasn't anyone to look up to, right? We say like seeing is believing. And so what do you do if you can't see it? You become it, right? For other people so they can see you. And I love that you're so visible online, sharing your experience with other people who are just like, okay, I want to do this thing, but like, is it even possible, right? And they can't see anyone who looks like them. And it's not even that, because I think sometimes they, oh, this person looks like me, but it's like, are they willing to share their experience, right? That's another step further of people just saying like, yeah, I'm going to share my experience, going to share what I learned, and hopefully it helps other people. And I feel like you do a great job doing that. So that's amazing. And coming to where we're at now in 2020 and just COVID and just it's just been a whirlwind of things happening this year. How is the work you do shaping, the world that we live in today?
So I mean, I think military and defense is like so huge and so impactful. I mean, our technology is forever evolving. We know that. But currently, my work and something that I'm like the most proud of is it's all about keeping our country and nation safe through continuous research and the advancement and development of technologies. So I think that in itself is, what makes my job rewarding and what keeps us going as society.
And so, what would you say are some skills needed to thrive in this type of job? Because it's something that's not, I don't want to say advertised, because I know like going to school studying computer science, it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, you can be this. It's kind of something you have to kind of like seek after and like do your
Mhm.
research. And so if someone's listening right now and says like, dang, she has a freaking cool job or she's in a really exciting space, what are some skills that you've learned or picked up, now that you've been in this space that you think people need to be aware of?
Yeah, so my last position at NASA was a lot more technical and it required a lot more technical skills. But since my position now is more, systems related, soft skills, I think, are more important than ever. I mean, not just in my position, but in technical positions as well. And so for me, communication is the biggest since it's
Mm.
literally my job to coordinate with people and make sure everyone's on the same page. It's important to know how to put yourself out there, ask questions, just continuously checking up on your teammates. And, you know, you have to be willing to not just learn, but also help coach and mentor others. So leadership is also important. You know, you're sought to as the expert in your field, so it's good to know the technical aspects and to have a technical background, but it's also
Yeah.
equally important to be able to relay what you do and what you need from others in order to get the projects done.
Yeah, I think people say soft skills and I have like a love-hate relationship with that word because there's nothing soft about soft skills. I
So
think they're the most hardest because you can teach technical skills to anyone, to be honest. But to have that self-awareness, to have empathy, you know, to have communication skills, to be a great leader, it's something that comes with practice and then people usually minimize. But I think it's an underrated skill that help and like will help engineers like, you know, stick out in a good way. And so I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, it's great to obviously learn the technical skills because that's what your job is for. But in order to be an effective engineer or even an effective person in general, like you are a person, you know, you're part of your job. And to be someone that, you know, people are excited to work with and collaborate with, you need to be aware of those skills because ultimately I think they play a huge role in how you grow your career, you know, because if people don't like working with you, there's only so far you can go as an individual, even if you're a genius and you're so smart, but no one wants to work with you. That's not something that anyone would want. So I love that you're able to bring those skills along with your technical skills to just make sure that everyone's on the same page. So that's amazing. And so next, I would like to figure out like what is the most challenging thing about your job, but also rewarding? Because I know like it's probably stressful because dealing with missiles, like that's not a joke. So from your perspective, what is something that's challenging but also rewarding in this sense?
I mean, I think with engineering in general, it's that you're just always constantly required to learn.
Mm,
There's always new material, there's always new skills. Because I mean, as technology and software and applications, as those advances, you know, we have to like upgrade our skills too and
right.
continually sharpen up our skills. Um, and so with engineering, it's all about problem solving. And in order to constantly problem solve and in order to innovate or invent something new, it requires, you know, thinking out of the box and having to do things that you've never done before. So you're often put outside of your comfort zone, and you know, but you have to be okay with it. You have to love it. Actually, to be an engineer, you have to love creative thinking and just doing things that's never been done before. So the most challenging part really is just learning. You're constantly learning. You're expected to constantly learn. Um, but it's also the most rewarding aspect about engineering because when you're given a problem, you know, it takes months, years to develop a solution. But when you know that you're a part of that solution and you
Mm.
know that you've been a part of the impact it creates, you know, that's like one of the best things about the job.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like I tell people, if you join tech, get ready to learn every sometimes every week. Like I show up to work, I'm like, oh, we're doing something new, oh, we're trying this thing, and I'm just like, okay. But it's so rewarding because you're just never left to be, you know, stuck in a sense, except if you choose to. But there's always something new to learn. Tech is always evolving, like even as simple as our iPhones, where there's a new version every so often and you have to upgrade and update and do all these things. And so it can be challenging if, you know, it's hard to keep up with, but at the same time it's also rewarding because you're growing as a person and you're learning so much. So
Great.
um that
And
I just love
I
that
think
mindset.
people will understand that too. I think employers understand that too. I think a lot
Mm,
of times, especially as young professionals, we're so intimidated and
yes.
we think and we feel like we have to know everything, but I don't even think our teammates and bosses expect that from us. We just have to be like curious and eager enough, because I don't think I've ever have been put on a project where I was just like prepared or I just immediately knew what I was doing, and I was just ready to tackle it on. Every project that I've been put on, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so scary. I don't know what I'm doing. But everyone is so like happy to help. And I think that's so comforting. Everyone's like, listen, we know this is huge, but people put you on a project and you're in your role and you're in your position because people see that you're qualified. So imposter syndrome is really real, but yeah, we just have to embrace it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's always a topic of discussion, imposter syndrome, because for some people you get into this world and it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be a genius, I'm supposed to know everything, and it's like, no, you're here to learn.
I
It's
mean,
good
some
to
people
know.
are.
Yeah, it's good to know what is needed to get the job done. But I know that especially a lot of like young people, even like women or black women, like it's just like, okay, this is a struggle of like, okay, am I here because I'm a minority, or am I here because they actually respect my skills, or just like there's just doubt. And I think what you said, embracing, knowing that, okay, like I'm a beginner or something, like once in a while in life you are a beginner at something, and having that perspective of like, okay, yeah, like I'm willing to put in the work to learn. And something you said, reaching out for help, like I think that most people are willing to help you when you ask questions, right, and not assume that you know everything. And I think that's a great way to combat imposter syndrome, knowing like, hey, like, yeah, I don't have it all together, and that's totally fine. And I can always reach out for help, and make sure that I'm utilizing the folks around me, my team members, and the resources that I have. And people are cheering you on. They want you to succeed. That's why they hired you. Nobody wants
Yeah,
you to fail. They
exactly.
want you to succeed. So love that you
Absolutely.
brought that.
And
Yeah.
there's still people in the field who have been there for like, 20, 30 years who say there's still things that I'm still learning.
Yeah. It keeps you on your toes, man, being in tech. There's just something new all the time.
Yep.
And so, just switching gears for a little bit, outside of the work that you do, you're really outgoing in terms of being visible, right? Sharing your experience, building your personal brand. And it's just that, I mean, honestly, that's how I find it, because I felt like if we're invisible, there wasn't, like, I don't know how I would have found you. And I'm sure that other people, when they visit your blog or your Instagram, are so excited to learn from someone who's willing to share. So why do you think it's important, having a career in tech, or even just in general for any professional, to have a personal brand, to be visible online? What is something, that you can think of like, okay, this has helped me while building my personal brand, and what are some benefits of building a personal brand as a professional?
Yeah, so I think we live in an era where like social media is like everything, like it's
Yeah.
it's genuinely how we connect with each other, and it's so great. But as far as building a personal brand, I think there's so many benefits that can come from it. Not only do you get to connect with people who are your peers, and are on the same journey or path as you, it's also a great networking opportunity. So when I worked at NASA, I met more people that worked at NASA in my local area through social media than I
Mm,
did at actual work. So
wow.
it's a great connection tool and it's a great networking tool, because if it wasn't for my social media, I feel like I would have not had anywhere near of a lot of like outside of work opportunities as
Right.
I have now. It's brought me sponsorships, partnerships, resources. I've learned about a lot of conferences that I didn't even know before, traveling opportunities. I started doing Instagram meetups so that I could meet women in STEM in person. It's just a really great networking tool. Um, and branding yourself is just all about who you represent. Who are you online? You're basically just taking your personal self and putting it online in the best and most creative way that you see fits for you. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it's branding yourself is an investment, but it's, it's just a great way to connect with people as well.
And with the positives, there's always negatives or the pros and cons. And so something I know we discussed, recently was just being a woman in STEM or in engineering, you always have those naysayers or trolls that come after you. Like, are you really an engineer? You're too pretty to be an engineer. Like, they want you to prove yourself. And I love how bold and courageous you are, because you don't feel the status quo of people want to think an engineer looks like, because people want to put you in a box and people want to say like, oh, prove this. And it's so interesting because I feel like a lot of people who are visible, they're always showing all their code on their computer, like, oh, look at me code. And it's like, sometimes work that you do is sensitive, you can't put that online, right? And so how do you fight, the trolls or the naysayers or people who want you to prove yourself with the knowledge that you have?
Yeah, so unlike tech or programming or coding, the harder thing about being an engineer online and trying to brand yourself as an engineer is that a lot of our work is classified, and we're not allowed to post a photo of what we're doing or any of the engineering drawings that we've worked so hard on,
Which
or
makes
a
sense.
snapshot of our computer, and I've talked to a lot of women engineers who face that similar battle. They're like, I'm an engineer and I want to be visible as an engineer to other women who are going through their engineering journey, to help inspire them. But it's hard. It's hard because I can't just show myself as an engineer. It's harder to show yourself as an engineer on Instagram. And I have gotten a lot of people who are like, are you actually an engineer or are you just a model? Because you just look like a model.
Oh my God. Wow. The audacity. Wow.
But it's like, you can absolutely be both.
Both, right.
That. But so for me, I love a lot of things that are creative. I love art and photography. I love photos. I love doing my makeup. I love fashion. So my way of helping myself become more visible is putting that in the limelight, and then trying to tie what I do and how I've evolved in my career to help other people. I think there's so many different ways that you can showcase what you do and who you are without trying to fit into a box or a mold, and a lot of people will throw shade and hate because they're just not used to it. They physically cannot process, seeing beautiful women of color on Instagram, living their life, doing their thing, and still being smart and intellectual and intelligent, becoming doctors, engineers, lawyers, whatever,
Yeah.
And so for me, I just take it as a compliment, honestly. That's how I process it, because you have to know that when people are throwing shade at you or being hateful or negative towards you because you're doing something that they've never seen before, that's a great thing, and that's something that we should embrace, because that means we're not common. That means we're not out here doing something that everyone else is doing. We're literally being pioneers, we're trailblazers, and for every negative person out there, we have hundreds to thousands more people who are looking up to us and who need us. So we always have to keep that in the back of our minds and just let the trolls be trolls.
Let the trolls be trolls. Yes. And I love that you said, for every one negative person, there is like 100 or 1,000 more people, cheering you on. And it's important to focus on the positives, right? The people who are appreciative of you sharing your knowledge, your background, and just being authentically who you are. Because I know that for a fact, like even for me being like in the city of Seattle, where it's just like super dull sometimes, the weather can be, not motivating. And even sometimes, going into work and it's like, if you dress up, people think you're going for an interview. And I'm just like, nah, this is just me, And I think
I slay every day.
yeah, you slay every day, like go to work, style, everything. And I think, like you said, people are not used to, well, especially in this industry, used to that combination of like, hey, like, no, like there are other things I care about besides work. You know, like I'm a creative. And so it's not either or, it's and, you know, I'm an engineer and I'm like blogger. I'm an engineer and I'm an artist. I am an engineer and I'm a creative, you know, person. And so I feel like the more we see people intersectionality, who they are, I think that the more we can say, yeah, like that's totally fine. You don't have to fit a certain box, which is needed for right now. So I love that you're able to share your experience, because I feel like that's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you know, knowing that a lot of people right now with everything that's happening with COVID, people are looking for ways to either apply for jobs or get into tech. What are three advice or three tips you would give anyone right now looking to get into engineering, whether it's mechanical engineering, systems engineering, computer engineering, just from your perspective during, you know, our current climate with COVID-19?
Yeah, so I think right now is like one of the best times to just like definitely network, connect with people online, because you never know like whose path you'll cross that can actually help you, you know, with your career or get your foot in the door at a company or at a job. So networking. Number two is that I've been seeing a lot of online like seminars and conferences, and I think that's
Yes.
also a great networking opportunity. And not only networking, but just you're able to just get resources and just like learn about the field, you know, and that's stuff you can still throw in your resume. You could be like, hey, like during this time I took the initiative to attend seminars and conferences and network. And it's a resume builder, because you don't want to absolutely seem like you didn't take this time to do anything, you know. So I think that's a great way to build your resume. And then third, I think right now is the time where a lot of people started like baking at first. I don't know
I
why.
know. I still don't know how to bake banana bread. I was like, that's
Right?
not for me. It's cool.
Which is great. Like I saw a lot of people like started working on their home a little bit more, like me. But it's also a great time to just like pick up like a side project or like some hobbies. Volunteering if you can. Just do things that you can like do at home, you know, utilize your resources. If you're going into tech, like maybe build an application in your free time, you know, or do some web development, build your own website. For engineering, like I remember like when I was in college, I would just like build little like mechanical like, I don't know, I think I built like an RC car at one point. You can just like YouTube some fun home projects, throw it on your resume. It's all applicable. It definitely also shows employers that you have taken initiative, you know, to do something to keep yourself busy and well-rounded, and you're building skills at the same time.
Hmm.
I think in the beginning it was really hard trying to be productive, because we were trying to wrap our mind around the pandemic and everything that was
Right.
going on. It was very mentally and emotionally exhausting.
Yeah.
Um, but as you can and as you're able, I think it's good to get yourself up, you know, and do something, because your life is still going to happen, your career is still happening. So just keep building yourself and building your connections and your network and your skills at home.
Yeah. Love that. I think that a lot of people right now, it's easy to be passive because a lot of things are uncertain. And you know, with the unemployment rate like just rising, every week it's just like, wow, like am I going to ever get a job? But I love that you said, you know, be proactive, you know, focus on the things that are within your control. If you're like most people at home now, work on small projects or things that will help you showcase the skills that you have. When the opportunity comes, you're already ready. You don't have to get ready. And I think that that's a lot of things. I think that's what people need to like keep in mind. I know that it's been hard and it's coming from a privileged place. I know I have a job, so it's different. But I think the more people are able to create and build during this time, the more opportunities will open up when the time comes. And so, love everything that you said. And I'm just curious because you are so efficient on social media. I'm just throwing this question out there. What are some social media tips that you've learned? Because I feel like you're one of the most consistent person when it
Wow.
comes to like posting. Yes, I believe it. I'm just like, oh, Mary with another selfie. Oh, with another vlog. Oh, okay, a feature on Forbes. Oh, I was like, all right, Mary, let's go. And so now that you've been like posting and being visible online, for those who want to start, but like maybe you're like an introvert or like I don't really know this thing, I don't want to put my face anywhere. What are some tips that you can give them like to getting started to like posting content and being visible?
Okay, first of all, I just want to say that I'm so happy you said that. A lot of people have told me that, but I just want to clarify that I absolutely wing it sometimes. Like there's
Right.
very little parts of me where I'm just like mentally sane enough to where I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna push out content, because I work and I also run a business, and it's mentally consuming,
Mm,
trying to keep up with everything. But I will say that when I first started, I did go like really hard on my social media and trying to, curate content for people and trying to figure out what's valuable to my followers and what can be resourceful for them. So for those who are starting, I would recommend just kind of like outlining what you want to talk about, like pull out a whiteboard, pull out a notebook, and just outline things that you're very passionate about, and see and try to gauge what your audience's needs are, and try not to go so broad, because when I first started I was like, I want to cover everything, I want to talk about everything, and it was so tiring trying to do it all. So just break down your passion and your knowledge into like a few like subtopics that you really want to talk about, and just write down those topics. Like I would keep a like on my notes app in my iPhone, like I would just get random like inspiration and thoughts throughout the day while I was working, and I'd be like, oh, this is good, like I can talk about this later, like let me just jot this down really quick,
yeah.
so you can absolutely sit down and plan out your content. There's a lot of people who will literally block out their schedule, and just like take a bunch of photos that are relevant, and then back it up with a blog post or their Instagram captions. You can absolutely sit down and outline it out. Or if you're like me, I really would just do it when I'm feeling inspired, and I would do it when I did have something to talk about. And as you showcase yourself and you slowly get into it, you'll start getting questions in your DMs. And the questions that your followers ask you are like a really good starting point for, gauging what is valuable and what you can start posting more of. So yeah, you can slowly get into it for sure, just by like sitting down and just thinking about, what do I want to post and how do I want to brand myself? And you kind of have to like hone into your specific niche. um, and then it's all a work in progress. Mine is still, I feel like my content still changes, and you can let it change. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to slowly start putting stuff out there,
Right.
and your interests will evolve over time, your audience will evolve, and it's a project, it's an ongoing project.
Wow, I need to take notes. They're just like, okay, you did this, Mary said did that, Mary. Okay, cool. But no, these are all really insightful and helpful tips, and I think that anyone can utilize that and put it into practice and begin to see results. And so, obviously, doing it for the right reasons, because I feel like if you don't, you're probably going to hit burnout and not
Yeah.
be able to sustain it. So. Yeah, and now switching gears to our lightning round, just to get to know a bit more about you in 5 words or less. What's one of the biggest misconception about your job?
That you have to tone it down,
Oh,
or you can't
okay.
dress up. I wear
Yeah,
heels every day, every single day to work.
yeah. Wow, that's awesome. What is your favorite piece of technology right now?
My new robot vacuum cleaner, because I'm lazy.
So does it actually like go in every corner of the house? You just turn it on and it's running for
No,
you.
I look at it sometimes and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I know like you're doing the work for me, but like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, but my robot my robot vacuum cleaner comes with a remote control. So if it's like missing a spot, I can just like control it a little bit,
Gotcha.
while I'm still on the couch.
Um, what is something that brings you joy right now?
Decorating my home. So I've had my house for 2 years, and I'm just now like upgrading my furniture, but it's so fun and expensive.
And you have the time, so you're not really going anywhere. Oh, we're not going anywhere right now, but we're still in quarantine. I think we should be. But yeah, that's awesome. What is one productivity hack that you've learned during quarantine?
Um, I can't say. I don't feel like I've been productive.
That's
Um,
totally fine. I mean, I feel like everyone's still figuring how they work.
Rest.
Yeah.
Honestly, resting drives productivity.
Yes.
Because people think like, oh, I have to like continuously like go, go, go. And then I burn out all the time. And I'm like, well, maybe if I just like unplug and like just
Mhm.
like mentally shut off for a couple of days. Um, and try not to guilt trip myself during the process. And then I come back
Yeah.
even stronger. I come back and I'm like, all right, you guys, I'm ready. I think that's what helps me be the most productive right now.
I love that. And how would your parents describe what you do for a living?
They couldn't. My parents,
Even
I
if
have
they try,
immigrant
they're just like,
parents.
our daughter is, like, you have no faith in them. Like, what would they say?
Job.
Oh man, that's
No, I
hilarious.
have immigrant parents, and my dad thinks all engineers work at Boeing because Boeing is the only engineering company he knows. So he tells everyone that I work at Boeing, and then every time he calls me, he's like, "Hey, how's
Stop.
it?" And I'm like, "Dad, I don't work at Boeing."
That is hilarious. That's so funny because we have Boeing here in Seattle. That is just so hilarious to me that he thinks that. That is so funny. Last but not least, like, how can we support you in what you're doing? Where can people find you online? Because you have a dope shop where you sell a lot of stuff that empowers a lot of STEMinists, people who want to support more women in STEM. Yeah. So how can we support you?
So I'm most active on Instagram, so please feel free to reach out to me. I love hearing from people and hearing about their stories and journey. I do have an online shop. I started as a fun side hobby. It's still something that I do for fun. So if you want to support, go buy some merch, post a picture, tag me in it, I'll reshare. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here on the Tech Unlock podcast. And if you're listening, if you're watching and something that Mary said stood out to you, feel free to take a screenshot, post it on IG. We're both like active on there and we'll repost, or even on LinkedIn. Like, let us know if you learned
Yes.
something. And if you have more questions, reach out to us. That's why we do this. We do this to have more conversations, to be visible, to engage with people, and to share what we know, because we know a little bit of information can go a long way. So thank you so much for joining us, Mary. This was such a fun discussion and such a fun conversation.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Goodbye.